Welcome back to today's Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the literal architecture of consumer trust. It's funny. Have you ever wondered why some brands can seamlessly convince us to just hand over our life savings, while others can barely get us to buy a $5 trinket? Well, the foundational philosophy we're working with today is pretty simple but honestly profound. We are learning what we don't know and teaching what we do. And as you're going to see, mastering that exact exchange of information is what makes a modern brand absolutely unstoppable. But before we even map out today's journey, I want you to consider a super relatable dilemma. Why in the world does buying a new sofa cause us so much stress? It sparks massive arguments, it causes sleepless nights over fabric swatches, and it completely paralyzes us with indecision. On the surface, it's just a retail transaction, right? But it's actually the ultimate test of brand trust. If we can unpack the deep psychology behind why outfitting a living room is so agonizing, we can unlock the secrets to marketing literally anything.
All right, here is how we're going to unpack this today. First, the power of communication. Second, the brand promotion pit. Third, the high-stakes furniture dilemma. Then, solving the consumer's problem, building the digital foundation, and finally, generating trust with reality. Let's jump in. Section 1. The power of communication.
Let's start by zooming way out to look at what actually separates us from the rest of the animal kingdom. Since the dawn of humanity, our greatest triumph has always been communication. Think about how wild our evolution is. We went from basic survival instincts, like animals warning each other about a predator in mere milliseconds, to humans passing down these rich, complex stories across generations. That generational storytelling built our collective memory. And now we're in this hyper-fast digital era where a brand could share complex ideas with millions of people in literal seconds. But here's the kicker. The core rule hasn't changed one bit. Just like our ancient ancestors, modern brands have to communicate effectively and build trust simply to survive.
Moving right along to Section 2, the brand promotion pit.
Okay, so you create a brand. Well, just having a name or a storefront doesn't cut it anymore. Instantly, you're surrounded by hundreds of competitors trying to do the exact same thing. And this creates what we call the promotion pit. It's this dangerous gaping void of trust between your business and your potential buyer. Imagine your customer for a second as a terrified acrobat, forced to walk on a super thin, wobbly plank right over this dark pit. If you don't fill that void beneath them with your unique identity, your colors, your transparent reassurances, crystal clear communication, well, your competitors will gladly jump in and fill it for you. Your customer is out there on that plank sweating, thinking, is this going to arrive? Is it high quality? Am I going to regret this? Overwhelmed by all that doubt, most of those acrobats are just going to turn back in fear before they ever click buy.
Which brings us to Section 3, the high-stakes furniture dilemma.
To really grasp the gravity of this dark void, we have to look at an extreme example, the furniture industry. This is a space where that acrobat's plank is the thinnest and the drop is the steepest. Why? Because of the timeline, 10 to 15 years. That's the massive chunk of time a consumer is stuck with their purchase. The stakes are crazy high. Look, if you buy a bad t-shirt, whatever, you toss it in the back of the closet. Eat a terrible meal, you leave a bad Yelp review and move on. But if you buy an ugly, rock-hard sectional sofa and then realize it barely even fits through your front door, oof, you are forced to stare at that massive, expensive mistake right in the middle of your home every single day for over a decade.
And then, on top of that, you have the crushing financial weight of the decision. Someone outfitting a new home might easily drop an entire year's salary in a single afternoon. They're buying the bedroom, the dining room, the living room, the whole shebang, all at once. They are literally investing 12 months of their sweat, labor, and savings into one agonizing choice. The pressure is just astronomical. If they mess it up, it's not like they have another year's salary just sitting around to fix it next Tuesday.
Contrast that heavy burden with buying a car. Sure, people spend huge money on cars, but cars have a thriving second-hand market. The terrifying reality for the furniture buyer is that the resale value of that expensive sofa drops to absolute zero the second the delivery truck pulls out of their driveway. The financial value entirely vanishes. Only the functional value is left. This instant evaporation of wealth completely maximizes their anxiety to a level you rarely see in other types of retail.
So, Section 4, solving the consumer's problem.
With the stakes this unbelievably high, how does a brand actually step up and rescue them? How do you get that terrified acrobat safely across the pit? Well, first, you have to realize they show up completely unequipped. They don't know the jargon about fabric rubs or wood grains. They literally can't visualize if that giant piece of furniture is going to block their specific hallway. They're basically in an internal state of panic.
So if they walk in and get swarmed by an aggressive salesperson who's just punching numbers into a calculator for a quick commission, they're going to run for the hills. The brand has to completely shift its posture. You have to become an authoritative, transparent guide, not just a vendor making a transaction. A brilliant way forward-thinking brands are actually solving this is by offering totally free expert interior design services. Just look at the value breakdown here. Providing 3D spatial planning might conceptually cost the brand, say, 10% more in time or effort. But to that terrified customer, that extra 10% guidance generates 100% of the emotional relief they need to hand over a year's salary. By mapping out the room, taking away the guesswork, scaling it properly, the brand is essentially building a rock-solid, permanent bridge right over the promotion pit.
Next up, Section 5, Building the Digital Foundation.
To deliver this kind of high-touch, trusted scale, a brand can't just rely on a pretty physical showroom anymore. They need a flawless digital routine. It's honestly exactly like riding a bicycle. First, you start by defining a crystal-clear identity, your tone, your aesthetic, exactly who you're talking to. Second, you anchor that with a perfectly functional website. A physical store might get 20 people a day, a website hosts 10,000. Third, you got to start peddling. You're constantly pushing valuable content and design inspiration out on social media. And finally, you launch targeted ads to give the bike momentum. If you stop peddling your digital presence at any point, the whole bicycle tips over and you instantly lose the customer's trust.
Finally, Section 6, Generating Trust with Reality.
As we look at the specific fuel needed for this digital machine, there's a legendary saying in the industry: advertising is like electricity. A little tickles, a lot makes you jump. I love this because it perfectly explains why timid, generic marketing completely fails. If you just put out a tiny bit of safe, boring content, it might, slightly tickle their awareness as they scroll, but it absolutely won't move them. To get a paralyzed consumer to actually jump out of their chair and make a decade-long financial commitment, you need high-voltage, high-impact campaigns that command their attention and fundamentally reassure them.
And the imagery you use is the ultimate linchpin for that high-voltage strategy. Look, today we're seeing a massive flood of AI-generated room renders all over e-commerce. And sure, AI is incredibly fast, and it creates these sun-drenched, aesthetically perfect living rooms. But in high-stakes environments, perfection actually destroys trust. Why? Because the consumer looks at it and subconsciously panics. They think, wait, is this a scam? Does this sofa actually exist? Is there even a factory? They need proof. Showing unpolished, real visuals, the humming factory lines, the raw wood, the physical showroom floor, your actual employees, that forges undeniable reality. Real visuals prove you're a capable company ready to deliver on a massive promise.
So I want to leave you with this provocative thought to challenge how well you're filling your own promotion pit. If your brand's entire digital footprint literally vanished today, would your customers still trust you enough to spend a year's salary with you tomorrow? Understanding your customers' deepest, most paralyzing anxieties and countering them with an authentic, structured digital reality, that's the only true way to build a lasting architecture of trust. Hopefully, this discussion gave you some ideas on how to build stronger bridges over your own promotion pits. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer, and we will catch you next time.